Well, good morning. We made it. We're here. We're finally here. Man, yes. Yes. Man, I am so glad to see you guys. And if you're watching online, we are so glad that you're tuning in as well. Man, I am glad to be here. My name is Brian Clark, and I'm from Oklahoma. I'm an Okie, okay? So I grew up in the Panhandle. Anybody ever been to that land up there in the Panhandle? Yeah, there's nobody up there, okay? I don't know if I told you this last time, but if you leave there, they ask you to turn out the lights and lock the doors. There ain't nobody up there, you know? But I grew up on a farm up there. You guys are going to hear plenty of stories from the farm. But man, I'm glad to be back in Oklahoma. I was having to watch teams like Notre Dame and Purdue. You know, we called them Perdon't, you know, and IU. But now, yesterday, I watched OU, I watched Tulsa, and OSU all in the same day. I mean, back in God's country, right? Oh, man. Like I said, my name is Brian Clark. I've got a wife and 3 kids. My wife's name is Logan. She is from California. Okay, I went out and right after I graduated from Ozark Christian College, I went out to the San Francisco area and we planted a church out there. It was awesome. Loved it. Met her out there, and she's great. You guys are going to love Logan. She's great. She's loud, okay? She's loud. She's got the loudest laugh that just, if you're in the car, it just hurts, okay? Oh, she's not watching online. Speaking of that, she's not here today because she just like an hour ago left Indianapolis. They're coming late. They stayed late to let Atticus, my son, play his last football game yesterday. So they're going to be up here. They'll be here next week. So Logan is my wife. Then I've got a daughter, Charlie. She's in 7th grade. And then I've got Atticus, my oldest boy, who's in 4th grade. And then Major, who's my youngest boy. He's in 1st grade. So they're going to be coming up here. I'm here with my niece today, Zoe. She's going to college up here and just loving it. Excited to be here. It's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be a fun ride. And speaking of rides, when you're going on a trip, isn't this true? It matters who you're going with. Am I right? It matters who you're going with. Now, if you've ever gone on a long road trip with somebody, you know that that's true. My roommate in college, his name was Nathan Williams. And this guy, he was wild. He was a blast, okay? I've got a lot of stories about Nate. But he and his other friends, there was 4 of them that decided that they were going to go to all 50 states and break the record and do it in 7 days, okay? Just a little less than 7 days. And so they rented a car and they did it. And there was a news report that was about them. And so check this out.
Hotel rooms tonight.
Yeah, that's because they've been traveling non-stop, having just completed a record trip across the United States. Here's the root of it. The crew visited all 50 states in less than a week, with Hawaii being the final destination.
When we first told people about this trip, there were a lot of skeptics, but we're not Americans. We're Americans.
It's easy to see how this quartet of asphalt adventurers bonded over the course of their 7,000-mile record-breaking trek.
We navigate by the compass of our hearts, and it's always pointing north, towards America.
Josh Willis, directionally challenged, yes, but Nate Williams, the mastermind behind the route, plotting a course that carved across the country, starting in Maine and ending in Seattle.
A year ago, somebody kind of challenged us to doing this. They said it can't be done, and it's been done.
Their only stops were for gas, restroom breaks, and photos. Their tall ship of the turnpike, a rental SUV.
So when we came to budget to return the rental car, normally you just check it in and you get your receipt. And they said, sorry, you need to see management. oh, you can't check it in. So I went to the management desk and they said, well, you had to come down here because we didn't believe you drove over 7,000 miles in 1 week.
From Seattle, a quick flight up to and back down from Alaska before the victorious final leg to Honolulu.
How many celebratory cocktails do you have on that flight?
Actually, I was asleep through the whole thing, so I missed every opportunity for that.
Don't feel bad for Brian. He and the gang are sure to make up for it in the coming days.
We're going to recoup for a day or two, and then the wives are going to fly out, and we're just going to relax and enjoy Hawaii.
A triumph.
I love that, right? There's a couple quotes in there that we all just need to learn and just internalize. We navigate by the compass of our hearts. It's always pointing north towards America, okay? If you say anything on the 4th of July, just say that, okay? And when we started, we had a lot of critics, but we're not Americans, we're Americans. I love that. Now, on that road trip, they were with each other for 7,000 miles. You better be good friends if you're going to be with somebody for 7,000 miles in a week. Now, I was a youth pastor for a lot of years, okay? A lot of years, 23 years, all right? And whenever you put together a youth event and you're going on a trip somewhere, there's an inevitable question that always is asked, and it was always kind of frustrating, but it was natural, and it was always this. When you're talking to somebody, hey, you thinking about going on the trip? I sure hope so. They would always ask this, and you can finish it for me. Who else is what? Who else is going? And you're like, well, I'm going. You know, am I not good enough for you? You know, kind of thing. But they would always ask, who else is going, right? Because it matters who you're going with, right? Now, think about our lives. We're all traveling through life, and we all have different traveling partners through different phases of our life. For one phase, Nathan Williams was my buddy, and we were traveling through life together. Now, Logan and the kids are going with me. Who you're going with matters, but the question we all want to ask is as we travel through life, is God on the trip? Is He with us? Is He going on the trip with us? Now, imagine your life as a road trip. Where is God in the car? Sometimes He's in the driver's seat, right? He is driving the car. We're going where He's going. Sometimes He's been where? In the passenger seat. You know, we're the ones driving, but He's right there, okay? He's close. Sometimes where's He been? Been in the back seat, right? I mean, He's there, but we're pretty much doing all the navigating. And then sometimes, we've all experienced this, that He's not even in the car, right? We haven't invited Him on the trip. We've all had every one of those phases in our life. We have. Traveling without God, though, it can be smooth for a while, can it? We all know this. It can be smooth for a while. Just like when that light comes up on your car, that check engine light or service engine light, right? At first, it's no big deal. You see the light, but you don't feel the effects of it just yet. Am I right? Okay? But you leave the light on long enough, and eventually you're going to have problems. My mom one day saw the light come on the car. We were in middle school, and for some reason we were at the middle school early in the morning, and there was a bunch of parents waiting on, I can't remember what it was, but we were all in the parking lot waiting on something, and we were there, and it must have been cold because the car was running. And that oil light had been on, and she didn't tell Dad about it. She didn't say nothing. She didn't do it. She just ignored it, hoping, I guess, that the light would fix itself if you ignore it, right? Well, it didn't. And we're sitting there in the parking lot, and all of a sudden this car starts to smoke. Okay? And you're looking around, and you see that white smoke coming out. You know what I'm talking about? And you're like, Mom, what's that? You know, and she's like, I don't know. Probably nothing, right? Probably nothing. It'll go away. Don't worry about it. Well, it doesn't just go away, right? And so eventually, our whole car is just enveloped in what you thought was the Shekinah glory of God, you know, but this white cloud. But no, it was oil problems is what it was. And then eventually, the whole parking lot. She smoked out the whole parking lot. It was so embarrassing. As a middle schooler, I'm just like, get me out of here, man. get me out of here. So many times we only pay attention to God in our lives when things are going bad. You know what I'm saying? What'd she do? She goes home and then she addresses the problem. She tells Dad, hey, look, we got an issue. We got to get this thing in the shop, right? There are so many times in our life where it takes these big moments, these big tragedies or these big wake up, shake you moments where then we're able to think about the deeper things. And that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes we need that, don't we? Sometimes we need those moments that remind us of what perspective is, what truth is. We need those moments in our life. But we don't have to do it that way. We don't have to wait till the car is smoking before we take it to the shop. We don't have to wait until things are falling apart in our lives before we look around and see if God's in the driver's seat or in the passenger seat. We don't have to do it that way. There's a better way. On this very first one, I want to take us all the way back to the Old Testament. Go with me, okay, to Exodus. All right, Exodus is not hard to find. It's the second book. But I want to start in Exodus chapter 13, okay? And we're going to look at one verse there, and then we're going to jump ahead a few chapters and look at the passage there. But Exodus chapter 13 is where we're going to start, okay? Now, Moses knew about a better way. He was literally taking God's people on a road trip, okay? I mean, literally. He had just rescued them from slavery, and they were going on a trip where? To the promised land, the land of milk and honey. And the big question was going to be, was this: was God going on the trip? They were going, was he going to? Exodus 13:17. Look at this. This is important. This is really interesting. It says this: when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country. Look. Though that was shorter. That was shorter. That road was a shorter road. It was an easier road, right? It was a shorter path. But God said, no, I'm going to take them the long way. Why? Look what he says. If they face war, they might change their minds and what? Return to slavery. Return to Egypt. They weren't ready for that road. Think about that in our own lives. If the choice was theirs, what would they have chosen? The shorter road, 100%. What do we want to choose in our life? Right? We've all been there. What do we want to choose every time in our lives? We all want the shorter road, the easiest path. That's what we want. But so many times, God is not sending us down that road. Why? Because we're not ready for it. And it's God in His mercy and in His compassion taking us down this longer road. When we're stamping our foot, slapping our fist and pounding our hands towards God and saying, why? Why do I got to go this harder, longer, tougher route? I'm telling you, there's going to be moments that we'll never know, that we'll never understand that God was there, taking us through the longer route because of His mercy and His love and His compassion for us. Because if we had gone our way, we might have been discouraged and returned to slavery, returned to the things that weren't good for us. We all want to choose the path with a better job, the different house, accepted into that college, get that girlfriend. There are closed doors that we're just never going to know that God was protecting us from what we weren't ready for. You may have heard about a guy named Nicholas, and I think you say his name is Reiner. He was on vacation in Maine, and he twisted his ankle real bad, okay? And so bad, in fact, that he missed his flight home. Okay, so man, that stinks, right? Like you twist your ankle on vacation, you get hurt. You ever got hurt on vacation or had to go to the doctor or whatever? That's just the worst, right? So it compounds, it takes a bad thing and makes it worse when he misses his flight home even, right? It's just terrible. You know what flight he missed? American's Flight 11 on September 11th, 2001. Yeah, that's the flight that he missed, you know. Now, look, I'm not saying that every time you miss a flight, right, that's God's helping you avoid major catastrophe. But what I am saying is that sometimes we get so frustrated with closed doors that sometimes maybe we shouldn't. Sometimes God is watching out for us and looking out for us. And maybe He's doing the very best thing for us in our life. Man, I'm living this right now. I'm living this right now. I interviewed at all different kinds of places all over the country, and we went on a interview to a church in Kentucky, right? And we liked it. We really liked it, okay? And our hearts, our whole family, we were down there. We were set on it, right? And we got down there and we got to the very end, and it looked like all we needed to do was sign the papers, dot the I, cross the T. It was all but done. In the very last hours, the whole thing, something got sideways, and then it wasn't going to work. And I wasn't comfortable with it. They weren't comfortable, you know what I'm saying? And it all just fell apart there at the very end. And my kids, they were really, they kind of had it in their mind that that's where we were going. They were starting to accept it, and everything. And then we got done with that, and we thought, man, God, what are you doing? We thought that now we're back to square one. I'm typing in the computer, looking in, and then I see this little place called New Life Christian Church. And now you guys are stuck with me. Now you guys got it. Oh, man, you just don't know. One time a closed door, you're discouraged, you're upset, you're mad, you're hurt, you're frustrated. But you just don't know. Maybe that was God doing the very best thing. Maybe that was God doing the very best thing. Man, I tell you, this is going to be good. I can already look at it. Man, I already love you guys. I already love you guys. This is going to be great. Closed doors are not always bad. Trusting that God is in control and on your side, that's what's good. Now, I want to flip over to Exodus chapter 33. Look at this. This is crazy. This is crazy. So God, He makes a great victory when the Egyptians, they chase after the people, right? You remember this. And God splits the Red Sea, provides a rescue for His people, and then crushes the army in that sea. And you would think that they would never doubt God again, right? That's what you'd think. But Moses, he goes up on Mount Sinai to go be with God and to go get the law. And he's up there far longer than anybody ever anticipated. He's up there for quite a while. And then you look up there on the mountain and there's fire and smoke, all kinds of craziness going up on that mountain. And perhaps they thought that there's no way that he's still alive. Not in that. You look at that, he's been there forever. And there's fire on top of that mountain. There ain't no way he's still alive. And so what do when they get stressed and they panic? What do? They go back to their old, what? Habits, their old ways. Sound familiar to us? And so they make a false god and they worship it. But Moses was not dead. And when he came down, both him and God were extremely furious. They were mad. And so here's what God said to Moses. And at first, it don't seem that bad. It don't. But trust me, it's the very worst thing that could have happened. Look what he says. Exodus chapter 33, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Moses, leave this place, you and the people you brought up out of Egypt, and go up to the what? The land I promised. That's good, right? That's the goal, right? To go to the promised land. Nothing wrong with that. That's good. He promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I will send a what? An angel. Hey, we're doing good. We're doing good. I will send an angel before you and drive out The Canaanites, Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, all the ites. Okay? We're good, man. Look at all the blessings of God here. This is great. Go up to the land flowing with milk and honey. Oh, man, we're preaching now. Let's do this. Let's go. But there's a but, and it's a big but. Look at what it says. But I will not go with you, because you are a stiff-necked people, and I might destroy you on the way. Look at that. God was going to bless them. He was going to give them a good life. He was going to give them the promised land. That was the goal, right? A promised land without God is just a more comfortable version of hell. Life apart from God is not what Satan tells us that it is. The goal was never the promised land. The goal was God Himself. If the goal of our lives is anything other than God Himself, we are missing the point. We are missing true life. Sure, look, we can find happiness and comfort and good life, but trust me in this, a good life apart from God is the worst case scenario. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, a good life apart from God is the worst case? Wouldn't you say that a bad life apart from God would be worse? I would say no, and here's why. Because a good life, you have just enough good things to make us not seek out true life. When we have enough good things in our life, we aren't forced to seek the deeper things. Praise God for the really hard things in life that make us think about what's true, what's right, what really matters. A good life without God is dangerous. It is dangerous. Look in verse 4 what they say. When the people heard these distressing words, they began to mourn. And no one put on any ornaments, for the Lord had said to Moses, tell the Israelites, you're a stiff-necked people. If I were to go with you even for a moment, I might destroy you. Now take off your ornaments, and I will decide what to do with you. So the Israelites stripped off their ornaments at Mount Horeb. I give the people credit here. At least they knew that this was not a good trade, that the blessings of God was not worth trading the presence of God. Look in verse 12. And look at what Moses says here. It says, Moses said to the Lord, you have been telling me, lead these people, but you have not let me know who you send with me. Who did God say He would send? He said an angel. And Moses is like, I don't know what that is. I don't know. He's not satisfied with that. And then he says, you have said, I know you. That's what he said. He said, you told me that you know me, right? You know me. He said, I know you by name, and you have found favor with me. If you are pleased with me, teach me your ways. How can God teach us His ways if He ain't there? So I may know you. Look what he says again. So that what? I may know you. He's not talking about so you can have a good harvest in the land of milk and honey. It's not what he's talking about. He's not talking about so he can have a good 401k. He's saying, no. All I want is to know you and to continue to find favor with you. Remember that this nation is your people. And the Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Then Moses, he's not satisfied with that. He wants to make sure, okay? He wants to know for sure. And so he says, then Moses said to him, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. How will anyone know that you're pleased with me and your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? And the Lord said to Moses, I will do the very thing that you've asked, because I am pleased with you, and I know you by name. Moses' response there was that he would rather stay in the desert and be with God than to go to the land of milk and honey and be without God. He'd rather stay in the desert if it meant being with God. Don't mix up the value between the blessings of God and the presence of God. Moses said that the blessings of God were not good enough. As good as all that is, it doesn't come close to God Himself. If anybody could look at the blessings of God and then God Himself and still be tempted to take the blessings of God, they're not close enough to God. They just don't see it clearly. Because the closer that you get to God, the clearer you see God, and the more you understand how great He is. And now you understand why Paul said that the things that he used to think were gains to him in life, now that he saw Jesus for who He really was, those things are garbage. They are garbage compared to Jesus. The best things that this world can offer, if you hold those up next to Jesus Himself, they are garbage. Stop holding tight to our garbage. Hold tight to Jesus. That's the only thing worth holding tight to. In Exodus 33:15, it says this. Then Moses said to him, if your presence does not go with us, this is our verse, guys. If your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. That's it. That's it. If He don't go, we ain't going. If He's not on the trip, I'm not going. That's that old youth ministry thing. Who else is going? Because if God's not going, I'm not going. Don't send me anywhere if God's not going with us. So many people have mixed up pursuing the blessings of God with the presence of God. So what does this mean for us? I want to talk on an individual, personal level, and then I want to talk as a church. Personally, here's what it means. Number one, default to trust. Default to trust. Right? Sometimes the way that God has taken us is the long way. But man, if we can learn to default to trusting in that way, no matter what the way has, no matter what the obstacles are in our way, no matter how hard it is, how difficult it is, if we can learn to default to trust in God. You know, the opposite is natural. What comes natural? Worry and complaining. Am I right? We worry about this and we complain about this, right? That's what comes natural. Man, if we can learn to default to trusting in God, then the results are joy and peace. If I can say, hey, look, I don't understand it, but I trust it, you have peace that nobody else has. You can have joy in the midst of a hurricane when you default. You know, the thing is, defaulting to trust never happens by default. You have to choose it. You have to stop yourself and make the choice. And you have to make it over and over and over again. And if you do it enough times, you will change the default. I think God loves it when we're in a state of dependence. When we have to depend on Him. Be okay with depending on God. The other one is this: spend time with God. Spend time with God. This is our reward. Never confuse the blessings of God for the presence of God. Be a man, be a woman of prayer. Be a man and a woman of the Word. Spend time with the Lord Himself. He is our reward. He is our reward. And isn't it true that the more time you spend with Him, the more you crave Him? And the closer you get to Him, the more you realize that's the only thing you really actually want in life. Now, as a church, what does this mean for us as a church? I mean, we're starting a new day here, and this is how we want to start. We want to start off with this by declaring that we will not do anything if God is not going to go with us. We are going to do it with God or not at all. So, here's what I would like to do. I would love to do a 24-hour prayer vigil. Next Monday, not tomorrow, but the next Monday. And here's what this is. It's just taking an hour, just taking 1 hour and praying. And so that every hour there's somebody in our church that's praying for 24 hours. Could it be that this church would start this new day off with praying for 24 straight hours and asking God for His presence, asking God for His blessing in our life, that we would seek Him and only Him, that we wouldn't seek anything else as a church except Him, that we would love Him with everything we are by loving others. That's what we want to be, and that's the DNA that we want this church to be. So could we, for 24 hours, just spend one day in prayer with God? Now, hey, look, I realize signing up for an hour to pray, that can be intimidating. Hey, man, I get it. I get it. If you never even prayed before, man, I'm not asking you to sign up for a whole hour. If you're not able to do that, if you're not willing, if you don't think you're there yet, then hey, I don't care. Do 5 minutes. Pray for 5 minutes. We just want people praying. We want people praying. But some of you guys, I know can do it. I know you can do it. And so how cool would it be if this church spent an hour and another hour and 24 hours, put 24 hours together and prayed? What could happen if God heard those prayers? What lives and what families are hanging in the balance right now? Who will be rescued from hell if we were to spend just 1 hour in prayer? As we launch, we want to start off by asking God to lead the way. I promise you, it's going to be good for you. It's going to be good for you. It's going to be good for the person that you don't even know yet. It's going to be for the people who are going to be right next to you in these seats that are open right now. Every one of these empty seats is an emergency. Every one of these empty seats right now is somebody. They don't know yet what they're going to know. They haven't experienced what you know. They don't know that they got to go with God or not at all. They're still seeking the blessings of life, not the presence of God. But can we pray for 1 hour? Some of us are going to sign up for 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Man, can we do it? We say the same thing that Moses said. If your presence does not go with us, don't send us up from here. I'm going to pray. And after I pray, we're going to worship for one song. Look, if you want to make a decision for the Lord today, it's a great day to do it. I'm going to be right over here. And you can come talk to me about that. Look, if you just need some prayer and things in your life are kind of a mess right now, or you just want prayer for whatever, I'm going to be right over here. You can pray with me, okay? If you want to make a decision and you don't want to come over there, you find me after service. You email me, you call me, you do whatever. I don't care. You come talk to me at some point. It's the greatest decision you'll ever make in your life. Let me pray, and we'll worship.